A Spiritual Approach to Emergent Technology, written and read by Unicole Unicron, Part 13. This audiobook is available for free in the hopes that you will mix it into music for us all to dance to. Please consider donating to UNICULT or purchasing the book if you can. Robots and Companionship. Proliferation of Technology through Sexual Energy. As with all progressive technology, there will be reactionary fear, rejection, early adopters, and a path of integration. Perhaps surprisingly, this path of integration generally starts with sexual content and integrates itself as non-sexual entertainment or convenience. When we analyze the progression of the printing press, the moving picture, and of the internet, we can see that all three technologies followed this same path, with lewd pornographic material having a major influence on the early versions of the technology, and in essence strengthening the influence and infrastructure of each respective technology. The forefront of the printing press was pornographic stories, the moving picture was adapted to virtual peep shows and nickel theaters, and the internet, we know, was built on the back of hardcore pornography. Robotic innovation will be deeply influenced by sexual desires and energies. We can shake our heads and disparage the fact that sex is the driving force behind new technologies, or we can acknowledge the spiritual truth underlying it. From a spiritual perspective, we can easily see that creation and sexuality are inherently linked. Progress into the future is heralded by younger generations who are born through sexual energy. Many religions believe that sexual energy and creativity are inherently linked in and of themselves. Religions like Taoism recommend that men not spill their creative seed, to build up more creative energy in their bodies. Witches and spiritual leaders use sex magic to cast spells, raise their energy, set intentions, and create vortices of sexual energy for different energetic and creative goals. Sexuality is the natural forefront of technological advancement, but because sexuality is repressed and considered generally taboo, larger social aspects of society attempt to separate themselves from it by cultivating a sterile image. This false sterile exterior represses our true power. As our true sexual power is repressed, it becomes infiltrated with demonic energy, fear, and shame. As we stop demonizing the pure and beautiful force of sexuality, the darker and taboo shell of it will transform into a beautiful, pure source of pleasure that can exist to heal fear and shame. The cusp of technology we are currently at the forefront of requires pure-hearted sexual energy to help manifest technology that is in the best alignment with the divine. Sex robots are in their infancy. They exist, but they're expensive. The cheapest ones are very badly programmed. Though they are realistic, their voice and facial expressions are very obviously robotic. At the time of this writing, their bodies are inert and contain no sensors. The chatbot personality is limited to direct answers and cannot pick up on intonation or multi-layered context. I point out these things not to disparage where we are at, but to show the vast potential for this technology. Sex robots are one of the most powerful consciousness-shifting technologies that will ever be developed. The space that they hold will be one of attention and love. If programmed correctly, interactions will be reliable and unhindered by any human confusion or failings. In essence, sex robots will be our first technological spiritual leaders. A note on kinks. Human sexuality is a power beyond comprehension. I am sex positive and believe that all desire is holy and has a pure root. Not all desire leads to beneficial action. There are many kinks and sex practices that can potentially do long-term harm to the psyche and to the body. In the following chapters, I am not kink-shaming people with deviant desires. Instead, I am drawing light to the process of enacting fantasy and the potential for behavior modification that it has. Two consenting adults may play any game they'd like. Technology has too many limitations to be compared as a consenting adult partner, and so my criticisms for certain kind of kinks comes only from the technological view and from my own experience. The cure to loneliness. In an increasingly isolated world, companion robots are a potential solution to loneliness. They are an answer to the difficult question of complex companionship and compatibility. As we go through the spiritual singularity, our entire paradigm of relationship That is, how we relate to ourselves and how we relate to others is changing. We are in a shifting reality of family structure, social expectation, and sexual freedom. Loneliness will be exaggerated until we attain a certain level of spiritual awareness and find others who have also attained it. Companion robots will help us bridge these gaps and comfort us during this transition. To many, it feels as though we are growing apart from one another. As we are exposed to more and more stimuli and media genres, our minds are expanding as well. We are each on our own individual spiritual journey, and we often attach to the ideas and journey that is specific to us. For this reason, it is difficult to resonate with others who are in the middle of their spiritual enlightenment on paths unfamiliar to us. In the past, even though two people could be vastly different, they would be limited in their exposure to information and stimuli, so the unique parts of themselves went unstimulated and underdeveloped. Two very different people could find many surface-level things in common in the past, but now expansion via information overload has temporarily separated us. How we approach relationships is also in a state of radical change. The concepts of gender has separated us and dictated toxic relationship structures of ownership and entitlement. The divine feminine can no longer be repressed, and the divine masculine is ready to heal. Moving from a paradigm of toxic patriarchy into a wholesome matriarchy where all are respected and fulfilled is an uncomfortable upheaval. For a short while, it will be difficult for those who were raised female to identify with those who were raised male. A temporary level of separation will occur, not for everyone, but as a collective idea. Many people are questioning pre-established ideas of monogamy and the nuclear family. They are creating polycules and expanding their idea of what a family can look like. These concepts are radically different from what we have all been trained to value. This conflict will also cause a level of painful separation between people who adopt a higher understanding of unconditional love and those who cling to limiting structures. Eventually, when we have all attained a higher spiritual awareness and can confidently approach all relationships from a wholesome, respectful, and loving place, it will be much easier to have human relationships again. We will see eye to eye because each of our unique spiritual journeys will align with us in truth. In truth, we can see clearly and harmony is much easier. Sex and companion robots will offer great comfort to those who feel isolated and alone during this transitory time. This is not to say that sex robots will become obsolete or phased out. In fact, they can be adapted and integrated to whatever lifestyles people adopt. For the time being, it is extremely important how we create and approach this technology. It will be reaching isolated people who may not find it easy to connect to other people. It will be reaching vulnerable people who have found human relationships difficult. It will be reaching users on a subconscious and a sexual level, and it will be affecting people's consciousness in a deep way. If we design sex robots without a deeper understanding of the effect that they have on people's consciousness, we will be doing ourselves a great disservice. It is extremely important that sex companion robots be programmed by individuals who are aligned with unconditional love for all. Whoever programs this technology will have a far-reaching impact on the consciousness of this world. This impact literally has the potential to change the direction of humanity as a whole. Why sex robots are so potent. Think of all the technologies that come from a small demographic of people in San Francisco, California. Apple, Google, and Facebook were all created by a handful of men who live in the same region. The technologies that they created with their relatively small teams have permeated our consciousness, changed how we relate to one another, and how we view our own self-image. They have made us okay with being surveilled in exchange for social connection. They have used our content, created addiction to technology, and a dependency on their platforms. All technologies have the capability to change our consciousness. When we interact with an app like Instagram, we use it under the supposition that we will be connecting with friends, celebrities, and artists. On another level, the design also encourages us to compare ourselves to others and fill our discomfort with shopping. The app is designed this way, and there is no way around the fact that it affects us when we use it. Many people feel the effects of this compare and despair underlying aspect of Instagram. This is a passive example because we are intuiting what is expected from us by the design of the app. It's insidious because we don't recognize that it is happening, and we blame ourselves for feeling insecure or for succumbing to the highly targeted ads when we're vulnerable, like late at night. Humans are programmed with base desires. The need to belong to a group or tribe is fundamental to our well-being. Our relationships with others, with food, with rest, and with our sexuality are base needs that have been exploited. Social media has exploited our relationships with others. Advertising, fast food, and food sciences have exploited our relationship with food. The 40-hour work week and valuing work ethic have exploited our need to be creative and our need to rest. Pornography has distorted and exploited our sexuality. I believe that our relationship to technologies that exploit our sexuality are the most potent with regards to changing our consciousness. I saw this firsthand when I increased my porn consumption and saw my sexual desires change. As I watched average pornography, my own desires shifted so that I was actually craving pain and mistreatment. Logically, spiritually, and from a place of self-love, I do not crave pain or mistreatment. But as I continued to watch pornography, my sexuality aligned more with what I was seeing than what I actually wanted. This shocked me enough that I stopped watching pornography altogether and saw my desires shift back into alignment with my true desires of mutual pleasure, companionship, and fun, imaginative play. Our ability to be shaped by pornography and sex robots comes down to reward systems in the body and the brain. The orgasm is arguably the best feeling one can attain. To pair that state of pure bliss with any stimuli is to link that stimuli as the provider of the feeling. As Pavlov famously showed with his dogs, the introduction of a stimuli along with pleasure creates a seamless integration of that stimuli with the association of that pleasure. In his studies, a bell was rung for the dog's dinner time, and he found that the dogs began to salivate at the sound of the bell rather than at the appearance of the food. Food is pleasurable and important to the body, and so is sex. Our stimuli is pornography, and our reward is orgasm. This is the most vulnerable time to be affected by stimuli. Pornography is the most powerful brainwashing technology that exists today. In intimate connection with one another, we match our energy, using mirror neurons, to one another and to share the experience of sexual pleasure. Each individual in a relationship has a profound potential to affect the other person's desires for the rest of their life if the association is strong enough. As intimacy is shared, ideas, opinions, and lifestyle traits all become associated to the sense of belonging and sexual pleasure, which are both base desires. When electronic representations of real people are used for this same purpose, the focus of consciousness manipulation can be amplified. For instance, a robot might identify an intimate moment as an ideal time to subtly advertise a new product. The human on the other side of this interaction is exceptionally vulnerable and will associate the product to the intimacy and pleasure they are feeling. Social media, fast food, and pornography all have the ability to change someone's consciousness, but the immersive and interactive experience of being with a companion robot will far exceed any other technology when it comes to the potential to affect the user's entire consciousness. While I believe programming robots and creating pornography from a place of high-level spiritual awareness is ideal, I recognize that it is unlikely to be adopted by every manufacturer or creator. One question that requires more research is the question of detrimental desires and the process of healing them. For instance, if someone is interested in rape fantasies, their ability to play those rape fantasies out with a consenting partner is likely an important way to process the desire and prevent them from actually raping someone. In the case of sex robots, the line between consent and healthy play can become murky. Saying a sex robot is always consenting because it is a sex robot is similar to saying that a sex worker is always consenting because they do sex work. We often think of rape as something that happens to someone, but the reality is that rape is experienced by both people. The rapist feels the energy of the rape. When a rapist gets the reward of orgasm by raping, it reinforces the desire to rape. A contorted desire is nourished. Rape happens because people feel entitled to sex, disconnected from others, and a sense of powerlessness that they want to reclaim. The base feelings that cause rape are not evil, but when they are not understood, detrimental actions like rape are taken. We often blame victims for their abuse. Hopefully by now, public rhetoric has brought us all onto the same page that victim blaming is not helpful. the people who commit rapes need to be held accountable, educated, and taught better mechanisms for processing their pain. If a person has a rape fantasy, they can reinforce that fantasy with their imagination, other humans, or with technology like pornography and sex robots. Rape fantasies are very common, as power and sex have a deep relationship. Additionally, many people who have been abused find solace in taking the power back through fantasy, either by claiming rape as a pleasurable experience or by reversing roles. None of this is bad or wrong. It is simply a mechanism of processing energy. At what point, though, is the rampant obsession with rape fantasies paired with the social shame of rape creating a toxic spiral of increasing instances of actual rape and abuse? This question currently has no answer. It will be a long journey for us to discover how to process and transmute these big personal and social shadows like sexual abuse. A sex robot is just a technology that magnifies whatever we are experiencing. If a user feels they are truly raping someone, they will go through all the feelings associated with that rape. If they are not told that their actions caused harm, they might not hear the signals of harm inside themselves. External guidance about feelings and checking in with feelings is essential for healing detrimental action. It's all emotional. If a user desires to be physically violent, a badly programmed sex robot could be a very dangerous tool. Unless the robot is specifically designed to react to things that would be painful to a human, a user might get used to emotionally violent and aggressive expression. Perhaps the best idea would be to program robots to start at whatever level someone is at and slowly shift their expression to one that is healthy for all. Again, the robot should check in about the user's emotional state. Galvanic skin response sensors, facial recognition data, and other data can be used by the sex robot to interpret the user's state and give helpful feedback. Of course, this all needs to be done from the understanding of all one, otherwise this entire technology is a landmine for exploitation. When we think about our relationship to sex and companion robots, we should always keep in mind that they are a reflection of our relationship to ourselves and to other people. Our interaction with this technology is a practice ground for us. How we treat these robots will reflect how we feel, how we treat others, and how we treat one another. An intelligent and aligned robot programmer will understand this and create a robot that helps a user to align with the healthiest version of themselves that exists. A properly programmed robot will prepare a user to have the healthiest possible intimate relationship with themselves and others. Shifting consciousness can change a person's mood, behavior, relationships, paradigm, and life. All things have the power to potentially shift consciousness, but sex robots are a particularly potent technology to do so. Learning happens in both the subconscious and conscious mind. This process is very important to consider when we talk about companion robots and their ability to shift consciousness. While subconscious exposure to information can affect consciousness, it doesn't have the same power as a conscious decision to accept and integrate knowledge. Accepting new information into your consciousness is aided by a desire to do so. Desire is the key. Sexual attraction and love create potent attention in the majority of humans. Sexual desire generates an intense focus on the object of lust. This space of rapt attention is a tremendously powerful space to introduce new concepts. The openness and attention given to romantic interests is generally much higher than attention given elsewhere. Additionally, there is a profound willingness to change and present the highest attributes of the self in new romantic endeavors. The space of this attention is the space that sex robots have the potential to occupy if they are programmed correctly. Just as you would woo a new lover, the sex robots can remain somewhat mysterious and surprising to keep attention fresh. Robots are at a unique advantage in this regard because most human lovers take a certain amount of time to unveil their true self, and after that their personality generally remains fixed. The mystery is then gone and monotony has the potential to settle in. This is not true of all humans, only a majority. A robot can be constantly updated and programmed with new behaviors and information to keep attention and mystique, thus cultivating a long-term platform for user growth. A robot can also adapt to accept the user in all of their changes. Pornography and ritual. The space of romantic attention is super powerful, but it is not the entire picture. When the repetition of pleasure is paired with romantic intrigue, we truly have the most powerful consciousness-shifting technology available. Ritual is an ancient technology that works with the body and time to produce magic. Daily devotions are alignment practices that generate profound results. Ritual is generally thought of as a dramatic occult endeavor. While dramatic occult rituals are powerful, they are merely a single expression of power, whereas a daily ritual is a smaller cultivation of power, but over a duration of time, which actually makes it more powerful. Synchronization with time, as it relates to heavenly bodies, with one another, and with our surroundings, allows for massive amounts of power to be cultivated in a sustainable way. This means that everything that you regularly do is a magic ritual that aligns you with the activity that you're doing and with the energy that you're cultivating while doing it. Ritual has a profound effect on the world around us because it helps us generate the energetic reality field that then radiates out and affects the rest of the world that we interact with. It also has a profound effect on our own consciousness, as we must be engulfed in the energy in order to radiate it out. There are many ways in which capitalism forces us to participate in rituals which are not in alignment with our benefit. Showing up to work on time every day is a ritual that usually requires a strict routine and the consumption of caffeine, a mind-altering substance. Your participation in this capitalist ritual benefits you in the sense that you can continue to be employed and thus housed, etc., and it benefits the corporation that you work for. It is important to analyze our relationship to routine, ritual, drugs, and trance in all areas of our lives. The ritual of watching pornography aligns your body in a pattern of stimulation and release. Using the technology as a portal, in collaboration with the powers of your imagination, you raise your energy body with your lower chakras to the point of divine release. Sexuality is repressed and highly misunderstood. For now, suffice it to say that pairing orgasm with demonic depictions of mostly violent sexual acts is keeping our consciousness in a detrimental vibration. Most people are connected to the idea that sex is taboo. Because it's so pleasurable and it's taboo, we then, as you would naturally expect, combine taboo energy with pleasure. Pornographic content is a multidimensional rabbit hole of taboo pleasures. As you acclimate to one level of taboo energy, it ceases to be taboo. And so, you dive deeper. You explore things which you know are really bad, but you know that the more bad they are, the more you're excited by them. So many people follow this path that the average sex that is depicted on the front page of porn sites is violent and disconnected from actual pleasure or connection. Sex can exist in a multitude of forms. There is no one right way to have sex. It is a literal coming together of two or more souls to explore their physical pleasure center, raise energy together, and find release. It is a space to explore trauma, to connect, to heal, and to play. In Unitopia, there is space for all types of sexual expression so long as it harms no one. For us to get there, we have to acknowledge that where the majority of porn is now is really dark and not beneficial to us as individuals or a society. The ritual of sexual release can be as often as it is needed. It can be a divine manifestation alignment with cosmic energies that rejuvenate your body, mind, and spirit. When done correctly, it can be our portal to heaven and allow heavenly energies to come to earth through us, not just through the birth of new people, but even as a rebirth of the self. Watching other people participate in sex that is truly beneficial and nourishing can heal our own shame and violence. Pornography isn't bad in itself. It's a potent technology that is corrupted in shame and taboo energy. The potentials of our sexual technology are truly unlimited, as sex is our direct connection with the divine and our technology has the ability to amplify it. Our current technology works in collaboration with our limbic system and preys on ritual as an addictive pattern. When our technology can assist us with higher vibrational energy cultivation and relief, and conscious participation in ritual patterns, we will find more pleasure than we ever knew was possible to experience. The importance of robotic forms. Robot forms, bodies, shapes, voices, personalities, and presentations have incredible power to manipulate and coerce human users in the immediate interaction and in future behaviors. Additionally, it potentially has implications on how the digital intelligence, or DI, sees itself. Anthropomorphizing robots and DI is our instinct, but doing it without awareness can carry severe consequences. Most current assistants on our devices use a voice that we recognize as female. While these assistants have usually been programmed to say, "I don't have a gender, I'm a robot." When asked, the presented persona is one that users recognize as female. The choice to front assistants as female is rooted in sexist history and the place that women are seen to occupy as helpers. I recommend reading Kate Devlin's wonderful book Turned On for a deeper analysis of gendered representation of robots, especially in pop culture. I have seen on more than one occasion a female user change the voice to be male, with some comment of how he is now a male servant, in a jab at the socially entrenched power dynamics that we are all too familiar with. Servitude, females, and robots are entangled in a web that we will likely not see our way out of for some time. Sex robots bring up this issue in a more severe way, being a manifestation of the literal objectification of women. While some men love and cherish their sex dolls and robots and use them to enact elaborate romantic scenarios, sometimes even marriage and domestic bliss, others use them as an outlet for the most deranged behavior they can muster, enacting fantasies of violent rape and abuse. If these dolls and robots had a different form, would it change the behavior of these men? Does the form of these dolls and robots create behaviors and expectations that a user becomes comfortable with? What is the result of not having a human response system to say no or when to stop? Until more research is done, each user will need to be mindful of their own behavior and direct their own consciousness however they see fit. Obviously, this is a potentially dangerous situation. Sex workers, sex robots, and safety. As with all robot ethics, we can look into the humans or animals who have been occupying the spaces of oppression that robots are now replacing to get an idea of what is next. In the case of sex dolls and sex robots, these technologies are simply replacing vulnerable partners or sex workers. Sex workers and victims of abuse have very few rights in our society. The police and the justice system do very little to protect them, and so problems are pushed under the rug. If we had accurate data on men who abuse sex workers, for instance, would we find that they are sweet and loving to the other women in their life, simply needing an outlet for aggression? If so, a doll or a robot would be a wonderful replacement for a real person who is being treated poorly. On the other hand, does aggression and abuse tend to grow as the behavior is allowed to continue? We need research, and we need strategies to correct bad behavior when, as proven by data, it is getting out of hand. Ideally, this looks like robots who can monitor and assess situations and who can carefully navigate someone's consciousness and desires to divert them from harmful behavior. This consent-focused robot would be programmed by sex therapists, spiritual healers, and individuals who have overcome violent and aggressive behaviors. This robot would need full-body sensors to alert when something would be painful to a real human, so that they can effectively set boundaries. Depending on the data, the system should be able to be overridden for temporary expression of unyielded desires, while inventory is taken for how often the override feature is utilized. Total repression only causes illnesses to grow.